In a world filled with demigods, dragons, and space whales, a giant talking turtle discussing lore doesn't seem that strange. But if you stop and think about it for a moment, it's actually absurd. Why is there a giant talking turtle serving as a lore master, sitting inside a church while wearing the Pope's hat? What exactly is Miriel? Where did he come from? And who might he really be? There are actually tons of hidden Easter eggs and references beneath the surface. First of all, why a turtle? This is a reference to George R.R. Martin, the co-writer of Elden Ring. His fascination with turtles isn't exactly a secret. The guy literally walks around wearing a turtle pen. That fascination with turtles is one of the earliest sparks that inspired George R.R. Martin to start writing stories in the first place. As a child, he kept pet turtles in a small castle-like habitat. One day he woke up to find some of them dead, and because he was just a child, he started inventing stories. He imagined elaborate political dramas between them, kingdoms rising and falling, betrayals, murders, and wars for power. Those ideas eventually evolved into the kind of complex political fantasy that defined A Song of Ice and Fire, the novels that were later overshadowed by the more famous television adaptation Game of Thrones. From that viewpoint, Miriel, the giant talking turtle that explains parts of the story to us, is none other than the personification of George R.R. Martin himself. He basically wrote himself into the story. But this still doesn't explain who is Miriel in the world of Elden Ring itself. Where did he come from? A very important central event in Greek mythology is the marriage of Zeus and Hera. Despite having 6 lovers, Zeus was obsessed with his sister Hera. When he began courting her in secret so that his mother would not find out, Hera, and to no one's surprise, refused his marriage proposal. Hera was the goddess of marriage and women. Marriage was sacred to her, and Zeus was known for the degenerate he was. But Zeus, the womanizer with zero morals, wouldn't stop at anything to get what he wants. And so, he came up with a plan. Zeus transformed into a rain-soaked cuckoo and appeared in front of Hera. Feeling pity for the shivering cuckoo, Hera took the bird and held it against her chest to warm and protect it. At that moment, Zeus transformed back into his true form. Now, in some versions, Zeus is said to have seduced her, and in others, he literally forced himself on her. I lean towards the second option based on the history of Zeus, the king of perverts. In both versions though, Hera agrees to marry Zeus because she feels ashamed of what happened. So at the end, he forced her into the marriage. You may be thinking where I am going with this. I believe that Radagon and Renala's marriage is inspired by this myth, and I do have some strong evidence. Just like Zeus, Radagon forced Renala into their marriage. If Radagon/the Golden Order never attacked Liurnia, this marriage would have never happened. Renala would have never accepted to marry Radagon. This war was a Trojan horse. This was the same deception that Zeus did when he turned into a cuckoo. And by the way, the Knights of the Cuckoo are the elite military of the Academy of Rhea Lucaria. Later, they declared war on the Carians and assaulted Caria Manor. It's like the knights were named to mock the marriage of Radagon and Renala by the developers. If you are wondering why the Golden Order did all of this, it could simply be explained by the Trojan horse, as I said earlier. At the end, this marriage destroyed the Carian royal family and broke Renala herself, taking out the rivals of the Golden Order. But this is Souls, so it's never that simple, right? If you want an even deeper explanation of this marriage, I highly recommend this video I made 2 years ago. It goes into the alchemical aspect of this marriage and how it was crucial to perfect Radagon as the Red King archetype. Then Radagon/Marika would use the improved Radagon to try and produce an heir. Check the video out after this one, but I have to warn you that it was pre-DLC speculation, so take it with a grain of salt. Now again, you may be thinking, what does this myth have to do with Miriel? Going back to the marriage myth, you will find out that every creature was invited to the marriage by the divine messenger Hermes. But there was a nymph called Chilone that simply didn't care. To that nymph, staying at home was more enjoyable, so Zeus or Hermes in another version punished the nymph by transforming her into a giant tortoise and forcing her to carry her home on her back for eternity. Now, Chilone means tortoise in Greek. Immediately we can notice a similarity between the myth and the existence of Miriel as the pastor of vows. But what's really interesting is found very far away from the Church of Vows. On a very high hill in Liurnia, we can find the Moonlight Altar. This area is very interesting due to its very close relation with Rani the Witch. It feels like this area is a retelling of Rani's life. We can find crystallions that symbolizes the wisdom of stone bestowed on the Carians. A red wolf of Radagon symbolizing her father. We can find Rani's dark moon sorcery symbolizing her encounter with the dark moon that shaped her life. We can find Dragon Adula that was bested by Rani and swore allegiance to the dark moon. The Cathedral of Manocellus, or the Celestial Hand, where we can find Rani after she killed her two fingers. The two fingers that drove her to kill her brother Godwin the Golden on the night of the Black Knives to shed her Emberian flesh. We can find the ringleader Everjail, where the leader of the Black Knives that killed Godwin for Rani is imprisoned. The whole area shows the different stages of Rani's life. But what about her parents' marriage? As an event that led to her existence, shouldn't it be mentioned somewhere on the Moonlight Altar? A very out of place area of interest at the Moonlight Altar is a lone sorcerer rise. It's called Chilona's Rise, and strangely, we can find Rani's dark moon sorcery at the top. But who's Chilona? And what does that mysterious sorcerer have to do with Rani, or the Dark Moon? Now, based on Chilone's myth, it's a strong possibility that Chilona was the name of a sorcerer that disdained the marriage of Rinala to an enemy like Radagon. And just like the myth, that sorcerer was punished by the gods. He was turned into a tortoise and was forced not just to attend the marriage, but to become the pastor of vows. And the rise became a symbol of this marriage. Now, when you talk to Miriel, sometimes he will tell you to go walk around the place and that he would have served as your guide, but only that he can't, because his legs aren't what they used to be. The first time I heard this piece of dialogue, I said to myself, yeah man, growing old is a bummer. But what if he's being literal? What if his legs literally aren't what they used to be because he was once a human? He didn't always have 4 legs. It's certainly very interesting when you look at it that way. Now, to unlock the rise, we are told to seek 3 wise beasts. After interacting with the puzzle, 3 giant tortoises will appear and you need to kill them to gain access. This puzzle isn't unique to this rise. Other rises require solving the same puzzle. But this rise is unique in 2 ways. First, there are many real living turtles that can be found all around the rise. And the more important fact is that this rise features giant tortoise models instead of the usual model. The spectral tortoises that appear shares the exact same model as Miriel, just without the Pope's hat. Now, mentioning the hat, what's up with the hat anyways? Well, if you attack Miriel, he asks you to stop, as his skin is akin to stone. He can't be hurt and he can die, he says. I believe this is a reference to Saint Peter, the one called the Rock by Jesus Christ. Saint Peter is also the first pope of the Catholic Church according to the traditions of the church. This would explain the Pope's hat. But why did the developers choose this myth? Why did they choose turtles specifically to become the symbol of a marriage? One of the most interesting and controversial item descriptions in the entire game is the retconned description of the turtleneck meat. The description you find in-game states the following: a splendid, lengthy cut of turtleneck meat, considered an especially nutritious ingredient in the south of the lands between. Now the old retcon description states the following: a splendid lengthy cut of turtleneck meat. Turtle meat is said to boost virility, but there doesn't seem too much appetite for it in the lands between. This old description led to the famous theory that birth through regular means was replaced by earth rebirth in the lands between, which is certainly an interesting theory. Now we can understand why the turtle was chosen as a symbol of marriage. This relation between turtles and reproduction is a sneaky reference to a very famous tortoise called Diego. Diego was an Hispaniola island giant tortoise. By the 1960s, his species was near extinction. Only about 14 tortoises remained alive, so few that scientists feared the entire population would disappear. Then researchers discovered Diego in the San Diego Zoo. Nobody knew exactly how he got there, but genetic testing confirmed he belonged to the endangered population. He was returned to the island and became part of a captive breeding program. Diego turned out to be astonishingly successful at reproduction. Scientists estimate he fathered around 800 offspring, helping raise the Hispaniola tortoise population from about 14 individuals to more than 2,000. He became famous as the tortoise who saved his species. After decades in the breeding program, Diego was finally returned to Hispaniola Island in 2020 to live freely in the wild again. Now, another equally famous tortoise is Lonesome George. Not this one, that one. Lonesome George's story is on the exact opposite of Diego's. Lonesome George was a Penta Island giant tortoise, and for decades, scientists believed his species had gone extinct until they found Lonesome George. As the last surviving individual of his species, he was taken into a reproduction program. For years, they tried to mate him with genetically similar females, but all of their attempts eventually failed. In 2012, George was found dead in his enclosure at around 100 years old. Interestingly, later genetic studies suggested that tortoises with partial Benta ancestry may still exist on another island, meaning fragments of George's lineage could survive. Now this, alongside Shinto, the traditional Japanese religion, could provide another explanation for Miriel's origins. In Shinto, some animals can grow wiser and more supernatural with age, and those animals can become the messengers of the kami. Kami are the gods in Shinto, but not in the same way people view gods in the West. Kami can refer to major deities like Amaterasu, the main goddess of Shinto and the sun deity, or spirits of nature and ancestral spirits. In Shinto, kitsune are foxes that grew old, and with age, they grew wiser and gained supernatural abilities like shape-shifting and fire manipulation. Some kitsune became associated with the kami Inare, the deity of agriculture and prosperity. Kitsune are seen as the messengers of Inare. You probably already noticed how kitsune are very similar to the red wolves of Radagon. So this concept have inspired Elden Ring. Now what if the same happened with Miriel? What if Miriel was the last of his species and grew extremely wise with age? We already know that Elden Ring establishes a connection between turtles and wisdom, as they are called wise beasts. Tortoises are known for their very long lifespans, and perhaps Miriel lived so long that he gained intelligence. We know that 5 fingers are the sign of intelligence bestowed upon beasts, and Miriel have 5 fingers, So just like the Red Wolves of Radagon, maybe Miriel was chosen as the symbol of marriage due to his wisdom, intelligence, and stamina that we already discussed. Now those are the two possibilities for the origins of Miriel in my opinion, but what about you? Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and tell me in the comments section what you think. Until next video, farewell, fellow tarnished.